This brush has a super curious name, the cat's tongue, and I believe it is underused and underappreciated. So today we're going to continue celebrating the dahlia flower with this one brush. Mapping out basic shapes in a simple sketch can be incredibly useful, even if you have no plans of sketching a single mark on your final piece of art. I'm grabbing my sketchbook now to loosen up and get friendly with this beauty of a bloom before I dive into the freestyle loose watercolor to come. Now I'm planning on sketching a full frontal or top-down view of this flower, so let's start with a circle. And I just kind of want to get comfortable where the center of the flower is at. It's not really completely in the center. If you take a moment and really look, you can usually notice a pattern of a collection of petals, even a quadrant of petals that are kind of generally curving in one direction. So let's examine it. You might even want to sketch out a few of the key petals that are around that center, and then start to get a sense of where they're curving. Here on the left, they're kind of curving upward and to the left, and on the right, they're a little straighter. And as they curve around to the right bottom corner, they start to curve again up towards the right. This sketch will not make any type of appearance in your final artwork. This is really for you to get acquainted with your flower. That's it. Call it a warm-up, but it's a step I definitely recommend trying if you haven't done anything like this yet, because I have a guess that it might really change things for you. The cat's tongue brush, for me, it's all about direction. It's the angle at which you hold this brush that's really going to determine the kind of mark you get. Starting at the center, and I have the point of my brush kind of facing the top of my stroke, where I want my stroke to start. Wherever your stroke starts is where usually the thinnest point or tip will be. Notice the center of this flower is a collection of skinny petals. The petals that are facing you most directly are the ones that are in the full view. I'm kind of actually pretending that this flower is at a touch of an angle because I really want to see the depth of that flower center. Let's look at that again. You're going to stroke downward with your point facing up towards the top of the paper. That'll give you a skinnier point, and that petal will get thicker as it moves down towards the base of the center of that flower. Those front petals are in full view or almost full view. And then as you go around the invisible center, the one that I haven't painted in yet, your petals are going to curve more and they're going to be shorter. I started with the fluorescent yellow from the Art for Joy's Sake palette with a skosh of peach mixed into it. Now I'm starting to work on the first row or ring of petals, and my brush is facing with the point out. Notice how I switched the direction or the angle at which I was holding that brush. I want the point out, so you're going to have to change the way you hold that brush as you go around the center. But look at the gorgeous one stroke dahlia petal you're getting so easily. Gorgeous. This time around, I mixed a little bit of yellow with the peach and a touch of green that was already on my palette. And now I'm going around again with that point of the brush facing out, being very mindful of the map that I did earlier so I know when to start curving those petals. See how I'm going around the left-hand side, and those petals are starting to curve up slightly into the left. And then as I come around here at the bottom, things are straightening out, but only for a hot minute. I'm reloading my brush. I've got some red on my brush now. So it's peach, red. I have not rinsed my brush, not once, friends. Going back around the left-hand side here, letting the color run out. And that is a peach that I made, again, from some peach on my brush, a little bit of red, and a good amount of yellow. Now I've got a lot of red on my brush. And look, friends, my brush is still facing that point outwards. And that is giving me those gorgeous pointed petals all around this dahlia flower. Look at how I'm holding that brush there at the bottom. And again, press and lift, press and lift. And I am changing the angle of my brush to always keep that point facing out. Going around the right-hand side here, and look at how those petals are curving. I'm not referring back to my sketch necessarily because I feel like I have a pretty good memory on this one, But you might want to have your sketch just to the left or right of you so you have easy access to glance back and forth. But don't let that sketch be so controlling that you lose the freedom of your brushstroke. See how I'm kind of bouncing around now around the silhouette of this dahlia and just making some tapping, bouncing, press and lift marks that just suggest a little touch or a twist of a petal on that bottommost row that's peeking out from behind all the others. Now I'm loading up some of the gorgeous olive green on my brush. I did rinse my brush before I loaded up this green, and I'm going into the center. This is that moment of truth where I'm really defining that center. And then a few touches of that same green without reloading around the center in between some of those soft yellow peachy petals that I laid down initially. This is a good moment, friends, to take a breath, take a break, and just step back and look at what you've done. If you feel like you need to fill in, make an area fuller, or exaggerate some of the curvatures of those petals, now is the time to evaluate. Don't take too long, a minute max, get a drink, stretch, and come back to it. One tip I have for you with this particular style of watercolor is to not feel like you need to reload your brush with pigment or even water too often. Because what happens when you reload, especially with pigment too often, is that all your brush strokes start to look like the same level of saturation or color application. What I love and what I think gives a painting a lot of variety is really letting the brush run out of paint as you create your marks and just seeing what kind of lovely happy accidents happen because you just let the paint run out. All right, coming in with that liner brush, and I'm just gonna pick up some of the same colors that I was using before that are already on my palette, just re-wetting them, and then just in a few select areas, adding some linear detail that follows the contour of the petal that I'm working on. I'm not gonna do this everywhere. I'm gonna restrain myself because this is fun for me. This is fun for me. I love this technique. It's part of my signature personal style, so I can easily get lost in this technique, so I have to watch myself. This technique is often its most powerful when it's used with some restraint. I feel I'm being instinctual, deciding which petals to apply this to. Maybe it's a petal that I feel needs a little more definition. Maybe it's a petal that's got a cool watercolor effect going on from when I let the brush run out of color, and I want to just accentuate it a little bit. Some of your strokes don't have to be repetitive lines that fill a petal. They can just be a little half triangle that suggests an additional petal overlapped. It's a nice little touch, a little visual break from all the repeated linear detail lines. You can also refine the overall silhouette or outer shape of your flower at this point with some carefully placed little half triangles or 3/4 triangles that are popping out from in between some of the initial petals you laid down. I'm going in now, I rinsed my brush with a little bit of that olive green, and I want to define some of the petals at the very center of the flower. This center of the flower just has so much personality to me. I've chosen to exaggerate some of the details and really fudge the perspective a little bit on purpose because I want that kind of powerful, kind of sunbeam top-down look combined with a really, really deep and impactful flower center. So I'm spending a little more time here in the center with some extra lines, some dabs and dashes and dots to really make this center pop. And those last few strokes, I am adding a little bit of an emerald green to the green that was already on my palette, a little bit of brown, and even a little bit of blue to get a really, really dark color. But I am adding this dark color very, very sparingly so it doesn't start to change the overall color impression of my flower. I definitely don't want these lines to look like an outline. So again, restraint is key. Now I feel like adding some greenery, of course, but I feel like sketching with my liner brush. I want to approach this part of the painting a little differently than the rest of the dahlia. So I'm not bringing back the cat's tongue. Just going to go in with a few lines that then turn into leaves by using a teardrop shape that has points at both ends. And I'm definitely paying attention to the pressure I'm placing on the brush so I can get thin and thick moments in the continuous line that I'm placing on the paper. Ooh, I love that third leaf I'm working on here. Just a few little sways and wiggles as I created the shape. It essentially is a teardrop shape. I just waved my hand, wiggled my hand as I went down each side. Now going in with my 3/4 inch dagger brush, I've got some info below about that one because I know you're gonna ask questions, so take a look. And I'm just adding a few press, drag, and lift, kind of my signature simple leaf, again to give visual rest. Got a variety of brushstroke approaches here. It's really helping the composition look super interesting. Switched up my colors a little bit. I added a touch of red to my olive green, and I love the earthiness it's offering up now. Things are looking pretty earthy. I'm gonna have to figure out something to bring into this painting. Do you have any ideas? Let me know right now if you have any ideas. I'm just curious to see if what your ideas are to kind of balance the overall earthiness that's going on a little bit. Let me know. Sketching in some buds here, basically just lazy circles with a little circle in the middle and a few more leaves. Keeping my arm loose. I am working from my shoulder, not from my wrist. The movement is coming from my shoulder, and really that is keeping things loose and stylized and lyrical, not tight and jagged and tentative because of the reddish tones and the olive tones. Yeah, we have a little bit of a split complementary going here. A blue-green, a little orange-peach, a little red, it's working. Now, I have an instinctual relationship with color theory, friends, but I did put together a video that tries to kind of uncomplicate a very complicated and in-depth subject. I'm gonna link it below. And I was very selective where I added these washes of blue-green and leaving some areas white. If you love dahlias as much as I do, check out this playlist and yeah, have fun. I'll see you in a week. Happy painting.